Hello everyone. My name is Emmanuel Abraham. As I told you, I'm from Indonesia. And today I'm not going to focus on my production book because I feel like that's going to take 3 hours to explain every single bit. Even Kadiva here had to cut out a lot of it. So what I want to focus on is Unreal Engine for animation because apparently we are sort of the first team to use Unreal Engine from pre-visualization to rendering in at least in our department, which is animation and VFX. Hello, cannot. Shalom. Okay. Right, so the animation workflow basically consists of 5 different things. There's 3D modeling, there's rigging, animation, rendering, and compositing. What I will focus more is on rendering and compositing. I will explain a little bit about 3D modeling, rigging, and animation, but for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to focus more on rendering and compositing with my workflow. This does not apply to every other workflow, but this is what worked for my team and I with time constraint. Mainly, that's the biggest problem is time. So 3D modeling, basically all of you guys here, most of you guys, at least that I know of, are 3D modelers, animators. You guys know it starts from sculpting or hard surface modeling. You have to read topology for characters, and for game engines, the thing that you have to do is that you have to also optimize it. Even though Unreal Engine is good with now Nanite, you still need to optimize your assets. Otherwise, it's going to be too heavy for you, and you can't really use, especially for animation. There's a lot that's moving, especially for characters, or if you want to move other things. So optimizing is there. And there's also texturing. You can use Substance Painter or any other software. I primarily texture using Unreal Engine because from Quixel Bridge, they already have textures that I can use and material that I can use. That's basically plug and play. And the reason for that is, again, time constraint. I did not use all of the textures and materials from Quixel Bridge to everything that I have. It's mainly for the environment because it's just faster. So yeah, this is sort of one of our characters that we have, which is young Cleo. And again, we have, after modeling Cleo, we have to retopologize him, and then we have to texture him. That's sort of what modeling is. And for rigging, we use plugins called Advanced Skeleton. You can do custom rigs. You can use plugins if you have a certain character that you want to rig that does not look like a human or any other living creature that's popular, mainstream, popular. Okay, like for example, you have a monster that can stretch its body limbs or something like that. Then you probably have to make a custom rig for that. But for us, since we all of our characters are mostly, they have human proportions, not human proportions. They have 2 legs, 2 hands, and a head. So for all 4 our characters, we use Advanced Skeleton, except for the father, since if you see on the left bottom picture, he has like a flower for the head. That's where we custom rig for the petals and the top. Bipedal. Bipedal. Okay, that's the word, bipedal. I did not want to be. Okay, continue on. Okay, animation. There are 2 types of animation that you can choose. You can keyframe animation, which is what our team did, and also what Kadiva's team did, full keyframe animation. You can do motion capture, which is faster, and it becomes more realistic because basically you are the one moving the character. There's also Mixamo, but for professional work, you don't really use like stuff that's already made by other people. You want custom movement. You want to animate yourself. There is a way that you can manipulate Mixamo or other animations by yourself. It's a hassle. You can. I would just suggest you do it all by yourself. So say for example, keyframe animation. All the animators here, like that's a spaghetti. Like if you've ever seen one. There's so many keyframes there, but that's basically what keyframe animation is. After you finish, if your graph doesn't look like that, at least then you're not doing your best, in my opinion. Okay, and then motion capture. I did motion capture as well, but for my other project. And looking at the picture that I have here, and looking at the motion after rendering it, it does look realistic and it looks better than keyframe animation. Although this was using MetaHuman, and with my characters, because we didn't rig them properly, there was this what's it called? We were afraid that the rig will break because it's not weight painted correctly. It's not rigged correctly. At least in my opinion, our rigs are not rigged properly. So if we were to do motion capture, it will just break the character. So that's why we did hand key animation. All right. So now moving on to the fun part, rendering. Like I said in the beginning, I use Unreal Engine from the beginning until rendering. So for environment design, lighting, importing animation, cinematography, everything is done in Unreal Engine because of its real-time rendering capabilities. The reason why I chose Unreal Engine, 1, real-time, 2, in the beginning, we did not really wanted a realistic look to our animation, which sort of contradicts the use of Unreal Engine, because Unreal Engine basically, you want real-time realistic renderings, right? Though it doesn't have to be that way, because Unreal Engine it's not on its own leg. Yes, it's a game engine, but you can manipulate it to do whatever you want. Say for example, you want it to look like a cartoon, you can. You want it to look painterly, you can. It's just up to you, up to your creativity to dictate what kind of look do you want. Like for example, on these two pictures, they're both in Unreal Engine. One of them is cel shaded, it's more cartoony, and the other one is more realistic. But they're both in Unreal Engine, so you can do that. Unreal is not just for realistic. I want to point that out. Okay, so for environment and lighting, since it's real time, I can see how the light interact with each other. There's no loss in quality because of the use of Lumen, especially in Unreal 5, and also a lot of my assets I use Nanite. So it's not Nanite does not make things easier. It's just that when you're not close enough, it does make it a bit easier for your system. But don't associate Nanite as if, okay, if I have a high dense mesh and I put it to Nanite, it's gonna be like 10 times faster. No, if it's high dense and you're close to it, it's gonna be dense. If you're away from it, it's not gonna be dense. That's what Nanite is. Okay, that's one thing I want to point out. So yeah, for lighting and environment, it's really fast to create environments and create looks and moods that you want using Unreal Engine, just because of like, oh, I put this light here, I put this light here, and it looks exactly like how you put it. You don't have to wait for it to render a couple of minutes, so it's really fast. Right, so like I said, Unreal Engine you can use to create looks that you want. For example, you can see these 4 pictures here. I have the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first picture is you not using any filters. Like it's just using Lumen, and I just screenshotted that. That is how the realistic rendering is. That's what the realistic render outputs from Unreal Engine. So it looks realistic. But then I can create a cel shade, which is a cartoon shader, not a cartoon shader, like cel shading. It's basically more like blotches of color. Like I only have 3 shades, 1 for shadow, 1 for color, and 1 for highlights. So for number 1 and number 2, you can see how different it looks. The darker parts of the original picture is not as dark because it has 1 value of light. It's all the same value. And then say I want to add hatching, cross hatching, and halftone. That's what you get in comic books. That's what you get when you draw something and you want to add shadow. You use cross hatching. I use that on the third picture. You can't really see it, but if you can't really see it. But in the shadows, there's in there cross hatching, like what you would draw, how you would draw, like sketch. And in the highlights, you have the little dots like halftone. And I can put outlines so that it looks like I drew outlines on my characters. So again, like Unreal Engine is not just for realistic renders. You can do whatever you want as long as you know how to do it. So this is how I did it. It's if you hate math, don't, because you need math. Well, you don't need to know math. If you have a basic understanding of of linear algebra and also object-oriented programming, it might help, because technically the way this filters work is through math. You multiply, you add, you subtract, but don't get overwhelmed, because that's also how layers work in Photoshop. If you have a layer in Photoshop and you change it to multiply, that's basically doing math, but this is just like it's laid out in front of you in nodes. Okay, so this is sort of the one of the codes that I did for outline. You can see the difference out there. Like in this one, it's basically the lumen render. Then I added outlines, and then hello, this is cell shade. It's a lot of code. Yes, it's very overwhelming if you see it like that, but when you actually understand it, it's not that overwhelming, because it's just doing the same thing 7 times. Okay, that's basically a loop, if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. And then that's the code for cell shading. This is the code for the comic shader. This is the code for the glitch. So the glitch that you saw in the film in the beginning is not composited, but I made it inside Unreal Engine just so like it's burned in. I don't have to worry too much about compositing. But I will get to compositing. That's not something that you can just let go. Compositing is still important. Now, importing animation from Maya to Unreal Engine, there are 3 different ways that I know of that you can use to import animation. One, this is the one that I use, which is using a skeletal mesh. What is a skeletal mesh? Basically, it's a puppet. That's what a skeletal mesh is. It's a puppet that you can control. Okay, that's the easiest way that I can sort of think. I see some game devs here. Please don't judge me on this. Don't quote me. But yes, a skeletal mesh is basically something that you can control. In my case, with an animation, I control that skeletal mesh with the animation that I have from Maya. And I do that in a sequencer. Sequencer is basically a timeline. You can see here. This is a timeline in Unreal Engine. So I animate my character in Maya. After I'm done animating that character, I export in FBX, because this is using skeletal mesh. And then I put that FBX into the character that I have. That's the big the trouble that I experience when using this method is I have to retry multiple times on the skeletal mesh, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I had to figure out a way on how it should work, and then I figured it out. But that process itself, it took me 2 months. I kid you not, it took me 2 months to figure out how, like a perfect workflow for me that works, that doesn't break. It took me 2 months to figure it out. So yes, remember what we say. Animation takes a lot of time. Don't rush yourself.
It took me 2 years to find my workflow.
It took him 2 years to find his workflow. It took me 2 months. It took him 2 years. So, okay. So that's skeletal mesh. You basically have an animation and you put it on a puppet and it's moving the puppet. The other way of doing animation is using Alembic cache. Alembic cache, it's gonna get technical. Bear with me. Alembic cache basically stores the data in every single vertex. Okay, I'm gonna repeat that again. Alembic cache stores data in every single vertex. Does anyone here understand what vertex is? Raise your hand. What is a vertex? Okay. Right. If you see the topology here, right? You have the faces, the quads, the rectangle ones. That's a face. The lines that you see on that character is an edge. If you see like this spot here, so if you see like a cross going like this, right? The middle one, when you 3D model, you move like the dots, that's a vertex. Okay, that's a vertex. Now, Alembic cache saves where that vertex moves in 3D space. So it's heavier because it has to save every single vertex of your mesh. I'm not going to repeat that again. It's too technical. But Alembic cache, heavier. skeletal mesh easier, but there's a lot of things that you need to do before if you're using skeletal mesh. The third way to do it is using USD, which is Pixar's universal
Serious something.
yeah, universal something. It's like it's Pixar's workflow.
Universal scene description.
Yeah, universal scene description. Basically, what universal scene description does is that it imports everything from your, say, I'm using Maya, everything in Maya, and puts it to Unreal Engine. But it's not technically imported. It's just like a proxy. So whenever you use USD, when you import it to Unreal Engine, if you change something in Maya and then you reload it in Unreal Engine, it will reload the same thing that you change. So that's faster. But that's a different workflow. I don't have it here because I didn't do it. But yes, you can try to use USD. There's a lot of tutorials online. I highly recommend it. Okay, cinematography. This is the fun part because I get to use this. I get to use this for cinematography. Not the camera, the phone. The reason why I love Unreal 5.4 is because in 5.3 before, you can only control your virtual camera if you have an iPhone. I don't have an iPhone. It's expensive to buy an iPhone. So I did not use an iPhone. But in Unreal 5.4, they came out with the Unreal Feed Cam for Android. I can actually show it to you guys right now. Hang on a minute, bear with me. Looks brave. Okay. See this one? Yeah. I'll just press this one. Oh no! Wait. Here we go. So this is one of my scenes in Unreal Engine. Now you can see it's a bit choppy because it's streaming to my computer. But as I move my camera like this, you can see that it's moving. If you want to see better, my laptop is here. You can take a look. Like Gilbert, you can see it. It's moving in real time. It's smooth. You can come here if you want to check it out. But right now, this is all I have to do. And I can frame it. I can even play it from here. Say if I want to play this, I want to play it right? It's playing. And then I can move my camera like so.
Show from behind.
Oh, right, okay. Then I'll just... Okay. It has to track something. It's too dark. I can't see it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So you can move your Unreal virtual camera wherever you want, right? And then you can play the sequence, and then you can frame. Oh, okay. Say I want the previous shot that I did was basically from under. So it's like this. And then I can play it. I can even zoom out. I can zoom it out. I can play it, and then I can shake it the way that I want. So the virtual camera is something that it's one of the reasons why I love using Unreal Engine, because you can touch your camera, you can move your camera by yourself without having to do keyframes and anything. And I can see it in real time on my phone. Like even on my phone right now, I'm looking at that. So I don't have to keep looking at my computer and, oh, this angle sucks. No, I can just move my camera like this and I can see what's going on. Okay. So this is why I like working in Unreal Engine, because not just during pre-visualization, even during pre-visualization, you can move your camera in what is this called? Real life?
Real time.
In real time, in real life, in 3D space.
Oh, right.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna turn this off now. It's my computer's screaming. Okay.
I put that nanti ya.
Yeah, you can put it to the. Oh, it's you have to present it again. Great.
Okay, so that's one.
Oh, you gotta bring it this way. Okay, so that's cinematography in Unreal Engine. It's fast because you get to do it by yourself in real life with your own phone. Okay. All right, so that was rendering. No, that's not rendering. That was basically everything I did in Unreal Engine to get to what I want from in Unreal Engine. What in the beginning, I was very stubborn. I didn't want to use compositing. Because why I didn't want to use compositing? Because of time. I kept saying to my professors, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time. And I'm not lying when I say I don't have time. We don't have time. I did compositing like to all the effects that I want to do. It's like last month, I was able to try to composite what I want from my picture last month. That's when I started to try compositing. So, but yeah, compositing is one thing that I would not like sleep on because you need compositing. It's easier. It's easier. It's faster because it basically you're doing it in 2D, right? It's not in 3D. It's not as heavy. So in compositing, you use render passes, and Unreal Engine can export render passes, which is like the AOVs, right? So this is sort of my render settings that I have. It has to be OpenEXR 16-bit. That makes it that makes the files heavier, but it's worth it. So if you want to try, you can like take a picture of this, or you can like ask me. I'll send you what the render settings are. I don't think we have much time. And then for color output, I also use ACES as well, because ACES has a lot of, it has more dynamic range in terms of color. It's a different workflow than using normal color space transforms, but I really recommend trying looking into ACES because again, like it gives you a lot of flexibility in color grading as well. And I was using 4K 3840 times 1540 because I wanted to use anamorphic aspect ratio, but I didn't want to use 2.39 because I wanted to be different. So I used 2.49, which is a little bit wider, but yeah, I wanted to be not. I wanted to try something else, which is now a hassle, but it's fine. So these are the two render passes that I mainly use, which is Cryptomatte and Depth. Cryptomatte became my favorite because it's easy to rotoscope. You guys, have you ever tried rotoscoping? Anyone here try rotoscoping? Raise your hand.
I have.
Did it suck? No? 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 Oh wow, I praise you so much because I hate rotoscoping. Basically what Cryptomatte does is that using the Cryptomatte, it makes a mask for you. A perfect one-to-one mask with your character. So you don't have to rotoscope one by one. It creates that mask for you. I don't think I have it here. But basically Cryptomatte, you can see the different colors. What you do in your compositing software is you choose the different do I have it here? No, I don't. If you choose the different materials, then you create a mask out of it. So it's one-to-one perfect. If you line it up, that's it. That's it. You don't have to do rotoscoping at all. All you have to do is click, 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 choose, and then that's it. You have your rotoscope for every frame, for the whole entire frame. No, the whole entire shot. Okay, and yeah, this is compositing in DaVinci Resolve. Yeah, I did this a month ago and it was hard. DaVinci Resolve and Nuke I really like because I'm just not used to using After Effects. If that's your forte, it's fine because After Effects does accept Cryptomatte and AOVs as well. So you can do render passes in After Effects. It's not a hindrance, but I like using Node workflow better. And if you want to composite in DaVinci Resolve, you need to make sure that you have a strong GPU because DaVinci Resolve uses your GPU memory a lot, like your VRAM. If you only have 8 gigabytes of VRAM, use Nuke. Don't use, well, you can use DaVinci, but it's very heavy. So this is sort of you can see here for the different shots, the different passes that I did for each type of shot. You can see in the both here, like you can see here, you're gonna see here, there's a cutout right there. You see this? This is using Cryptomath, and I did that in a couple of clicks. I didn't have to rotoscope like, oh, his finger, I need to get his finger. Oh, look at that movement. I'm not gonna rotoscope that. So using Cryptomath helped a lot with even though the rendering takes a lot of time to render 4K, but it helps a lot. So compositing is one thing that I would highly suggest you guys understand better, so that you can create these types of images or any image that you want faster, because it's in 2D space rather than 3D. If you try to do this one, like this painted one in 3D, I don't know, maybe Unreal can do it. I didn't find a fast way to do it because I was running out of time. But so I did it in compositing, right? And even screen replacement, because when I tried to put a screen media for the screen, Unreal couldn't play it, and I couldn't understand why. So I just used compositing to put the screen there. So yeah, that's sort of my take on Unreal Engine for animation. And I think that's it. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Questions? Any questions? Noise?
Yes, like
Oh, this one. This is using compositing. So what I did in DaVinci Resolve is basically those small patches of paint is just a PNG, right? But yeah, it's a PNG. It's one PNG of a brushstroke. What I did is I used an emitter. So it's an emitter, and I put like, I think around, for the characters here, I think around 10,000. And for the background, I put 15,000 particles and another 5,000 particles. So it's basically using the particles that it emits every single frame. So that's why you get that like shakiness, because it's updating every 5 frames. But it's basically an emitter. So it's like a particle generator. So it's generating particles, but those particles, usually a particle is like just a dot, right? So what I did is I changed that dot into the paint, and it's doing the particle. It's a particle system, basically. Does that sort of, I don't know how to simplify that.
Yes.
It's a particle emitter. It's using particles. Any other questions?
So I have a question. I know you encounter a lot of difficulty during creating customized meta-human. For instance, if you are struggling with marvelous design, which is that. So can you share some of the story of your, you just get over it and
That's okay. That's a different. This project. It's a different project that I did that's not finished. The biggest problem with this, I would say, is from Marvelous Designer, because like I said in the beginning, I explained about Alembic file, right? An Alembic file saves the data in every single vertex. That's what I use for the clothing. And Marvelous Designer is a good cloth simulator. It's very heavy. One of my files for one cloth simulation is 12 gigabytes for one file, for one cloth simulation. That was like, and I couldn't load it to Unreal Engine. It's too heavy. I'm still trying to figure out a way to figure that out. But another thing is also for the custom metahuman, like what Professor Choi asked. There are 2 ways to create metahumans. There's the fast way and the slightly longer way. The longer way is that you have to scan someone's face like every a lot of times. Like you go one pass and then you go another way, you take pictures multiple times. that's it has a higher definition. The faster way to do it. Yes, you can have it fast, but it's not in the highest quality that you might want. So I think creating your own custom meta human, you still need to do photogrammetry, which is like doing multiple passes on someone's face. That gives you a better result. And then also for OptiTrack, the OptiTrack that we have here is an older version. So it only exports a skeleton without a mesh, and Unreal Engine only accepts a skeletal mesh. So I had to create my own skeletal mesh from that skeleton. So, yeah, so there were a couple of problems, but yeah, that's good. Any other questions? Hmm?